Hello everyone. If you were good enough to listen to my last video, you'll have noticed that I was talking about the how we need to return to our roots, our Christian roots, how we need to unite the church under the banner of Christ in order to rescue our society, amongst other good and noble things. And less than 24 hours later, that was borne out by this farcical situation that we have with this group of students from our Catholic high school that attended the March for Life. I believe it was called the Colville March, the Colville High School students. Now, if you have not been following this particular pseudo scandal, what happened was there was a video released last night which appeared to show these students intimidating and making a fool of some American Indian chap who was performing some sort of ritual in front of them. And there was all sorts of outrage and condemnation of these guys because they were young, they were male, they were clearly Christians because they were in the March for Life, members of a Catholic high school, and they were wearing, or some of them were wearing, red Make America Great Again hats, the Donald Trump style hats. And there was all sorts of piling onto them. This was clear evidence of racism and far right blah de blah, and how terrible it was that they were abusing this poor old man who it turns out was a war veteran, and they had apparently been shouting racial epithets and all sorts of things. And then, of course, we find, as time goes by, more videos come out, other sides of the story appear, and the initial story that was tweeted and retweeted and published by various alleged journalists was actually being thoroughly debunked. What happened was that these lads were apparently standing waiting on their bus after the March for Life, the largest, most peaceful and utterly invisible, apparently, march that takes place every year in January in Washington, because it's never reported on unless somebody does something that they shouldn't do, which never happens, so it's completely ignored by the media. And they had taken part in the March for Life. They were standing waiting on the transportation back home, or wherever it was they were going, and they had been messing about and, according to them, doing school chants and just generally japing about as school children do, and had been accosted by a group of black people from some sort of a church or other, or whatever it was, who were shouting racially abusive terms, who were particularly picking on one black kid who was amongst the school children, and saying all sorts of things. Interestingly enough, using epithets that, if you had apparently verboten for people to say, but anyway. And then this Native American chap, decided to get in between them and approached the school children and eventually got right up in one of their faces and was banging his drum and doing whatever he was doing, and it was all very awkward, and the young lad was sort of put out by it because he didn't really understand, by the looks of things, what was going on. And they were all sort of laughing because it was all a bit weird and uncomfortable, and nothing happened. It's a complete storm in a teacup. The lad did nothing wrong. The only person that was in wrong was this man, this fully grown, apparently elderly man, who was acting like a complete weirdo around about a bunch of school kids, and the fact that he was a Native American is here nor there. He was being rude, and whether he was trying to cause an incident, or whether he was trying to provoke something, or whether he thought he was trying to do good, who knows. There's all sorts of stories that have came out about him. However, there you are. So that's the up and down. Nothing was the case. There are two things that are interesting that relate to what we're doing here, though. Firstly, we need to look at the reaction of the secular sphere, if you like. It's not just the media, because it happened all over. Politicians, individuals on social media, and journalists themselves. And it's absolutely a perfect illustration of what I was talking about in the video that I made called Silent No More, which if you haven't gone and looked at it, go and look at my YouTube page, because we have lost all of the things that made our society prosperous. Presumptions of innocence, presumptions of trying to establish facts before we come to judgments about people. Basically, a group of people saw what they wanted to see in that video. They saw young white men at from a Christian background, from a Christian school, from a Catholic school, who had attended the March for Life, which is explicitly against the culture of death and the culture of child sacrifice that happens in the West, which is the totem and the sacrament of the godless society that we live in. And they saw and read into that incident what they wanted to see. They saw racism because this guy was Native American and the young lad was white. They saw masculinity because the lad was standing there, he wasn't backing down, the boys were being boys, were big, athletic looking young lads, strapping young boys, and they were not being backing down or grovelling or standing back, or whatever it is that these people felt how they should have reacted. They weren't soy boys, these were proper lads, and these people have read something into this incident that wasn't there at all, and the reaction has been utterly and thoroughly disgusting. We have got people here, Kathy Griffin, who's allegedly a comedian, if you like that sort of thing, who of course last year or the year before was roundly criticised because she had a picture with a decapitated head of Donald Trump. We all know who Kathy Griffin is, this very strange individual who's into all sorts of things that, and who's out there asking for the names of these kids and where do they live and let's destroy their lives. Absolute crap, absolute overreaction, nonsense. And it all becomes because we have lost our sense of proportionality and being able to disagree with each other, and we have lost our Christian sense of right and wrong. And it's a perfect example of what I was talking about. We have moved so far away from what created our society that we have the scene of adults demanding to destroy the lives of children who have done nothing wrong based on a heavily doctored snippet of a video that's completely mischaracterised what's going on, and it's completely ridiculous. The second part, even more interestingly, has been the reaction from the church, the Catholic Church itself, because these lads have been condemned by priests, by nuns, by bishops, and indeed by their school. They were all condemned publicly on social media with public statements prior to even any information being gathered, prior to them being able to give their side of the story, prior to any investigation going on, and they have been thrown entirely under the bus by those people who are supposed to be mercifully, who are supposed to be accompanying them, who are supposed to be keeping their welfare at heart. How dare bishops, priests, nuns, especially bishops and priests, people who have the title of father, how dare they take these young lads and completely abandon them to forces, vicious forces, people who want to destroy their lives, people who have threatened physical harm, people who have said, we want to find out who these people are, we want to hurt them physically, and we want to destroy their lives. And these bishops have abandoned them to those wolves. These men who carry staff specifically to remind them that they are supposed to protect their sheep from the wolves, and they have abandoned them, and they have shown them no fatherly respect whatsoever and no fatherly care. I've been looking round, the usual suspects, Father James Martin, the Sisters of Mercy, who, interestingly, I scroll through the Twitter feed of the Sisters of Mercy, nothing about Day for Life, nothing about March for Life, nothing about the horror of dismembering children in their mother's rooms, innocent babies in their mother's rooms, nothing about that. But when it came to a doctored, completely bogus story, they couldn't be. They were on it. They were retweeting all the worst stuff. They were issuing saccharine statements of their own, and they've not retreated from that position. They've not retracted that. And even bishops themselves, Archbishop Cutts, threw the boys under, issued a statement, threw the boys under the bus. Apparently these lads come from a wealthy background. Apparently half of their parents are all solicitors and lawyers. I hope they sue, and I hope they destroy the wealth of a lot of these people who have been so quick to jump on the bandwagon and to damage them. And can you imagine how are these lads supposed to have faith in Jesus Christ, and how are these lads supposed to have faith in the church that Jesus Christ founded when they've been treated so shoddily? And this is the same. This is the same mentality. The American church has learned nothing from the abuse crisis and everything. And I know it's a sort of a Godwin's law, particularly discussing the American church, that everything ends up back at the abuse crisis. But the abuse crisis wasn't just about priests sexually abusing children. It was about an attitude and a manner and the way in which clerics reacted to claims and the way that they abandoned people and the way that they treated people. And this is a very good example of how that mindset still exists, that as soon as something comes along that they don't want to deal with, as soon as something comes along that makes them look bad, they look for a scapegoat, and they do not stand up, and they do not stand as fathers would to protect innocent, protect those who are maligned. They throw people under the bus, and that is exactly what's happened here. So pray for those boys, pray for the lads who are in the middle of a storm of nothingness, pray for those people who have maligned them, and those people who are so consumed by emotionalism and so consumed by hatred that they have said the worst things and reacted in the worst way possibly. And pray for our leaders that they humbly reflect on the way that they've reacted, that they do what they can to make reparation in this situation, especially to those children who have been completely at the centre of something that they should never have been involved in. And I have to say as well that there's been a lot of people, because there was a lot of condemnation from sort of all counts in the first instance, and then slowly, of course, drip feeds more videos and more information, and as I say, the whole thing was debunked in 24 hours. It was a great example of social media doing a good job as well as a bad job. And there's been many good people, reporters, there's been many good priests who I have seen saying mea culpa, I reacted too quickly, I overreacted, and I withdraw, and I'm sorry. And these people deserve to be supported, because anybody can make a mistake, and it's up to us to do what we can to redress that mistake. And hopefully their example may inform those who have yet to retract those statements. So thank you for listening, thank you for watching, we'll see you next time. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and please leave a comment in the comment section, and we'll see you next time.